Hey everybody. So I did a video last week about routing finger pulls for wardrobe doors and top boxes with an Ovolo scribe bit, and I had every intention of including in that one how to route the recess for this kind of sliding door handle as well. I had to cut that out because the other video was just getting too long, so I thought I'd do it here because I also had a couple of slightly incredulous comments about how I made the templates for those. They're just edge glued. So I'm going to do that in this video. There may well be a longer version of this video out on the main channel as well, because I want to talk a little bit about climbing cuts and that sort of thing in that particular video. But for this one, we'll just talk about a simple recess, how I made the template and how I made the cut. Okay, making these templates is pretty easy. I favour 6mm personally because it doesn't take too much out of the depth of the plunge. Also, I have a lot of 6mm scrap MDF knocking around. You can make them out of something thicker if you like, if it suits you. And I like just making them out of 4 sort of individual little pieces like this. And how I do it, obviously, it helps to have the handle to hand as well. I just butt them up against each other like this, so that they sort of overlap. Hang on. Closer to the middle, so that the edges just sort of overhang like this, and then we can bring the 4 in to get a nice snug fit. Now, because these handles, they sort of taper slightly, so they're not the same width at the very base as they are at the top. I'm going to give myself a little bit of wiggle room on this, so I'm just going to move these over slightly, a couple of mil that way, and the same coming down, just a couple of mil that way. And we can move the sides in to accommodate. That gives us a little bit of wiggle room, a little bit of play in there. And all we do for now is we just get some tape. We can just take these up. This is just temporary. And then you can carefully lift that up and just make sure that the finger pull, that the handle drops in there with a little bit of play all around it, which it does. So then what we can do, we can take a pencil and just mark on the inside edge here where they need to come. And take the tape off. And all we're going to do is run some glue along that inside edge and butt these up together tightly and just hold them with tape. You can probably do this with super glue, but I'm perfectly happy using a sort of quick set PVA. And we're just going to put a little line of that in there. I'm trying to avoid getting too much underneath it. And then we can just line up with our pencil marks. Take that up nice and tight. Continue all the way around. Then, just to make sure it stays nice and flat, and there you go. Just 10 minutes later, 5 minutes later, whatever, that is perfectly solid enough to use. If you are going to use it that quickly, I might be inclined just to leave the tape in place, flip it over and use the other side. If it bothers you, then you can trim these edges back And then I just mount that on a batten so that I get a consistent edge distance. And then I just give myself a I would just give myself a centre line on it and square that across. And you're good to go. So when it comes to making the cut, I'm using a bearing guided router cutter for this one. The one thing you do need to watch out for is that you've got the right size cutter. This is a 16mm wide and 12mm deep. Obviously with only a 6mm template, you couldn't use an 18mm bearing guided bit to cut a 10 or 11mm pass, because you'd end up cutting into your template. So you've got to think about that, the thickness of the template and the depth of the cutter, and make sure you don't plunge beyond the depth of the bearing as well, because the bearing does need to bear against the template. And I'm just going to talk you through this cut. Normally I'd fast forward this little bit, but it's worth just taking a look about the technique of routing these things. So I've got the template all clamped up in place, and I'm just sort of settling the router down. The router has got the depth already set on the stop, and as I plunge, I just sort of jiggle the router back and forth a little bit so that it doesn't just go plunging straight in. I just feel it's more comfortable just going in a little bit at a time. I am doing this in a single pass, which is 11mm, which is quite deep, and then this is MDF, so it's relatively soft. And then I'm just going to make the cutout working my way around the template in a clockwise manner. That's to avoid the climbing cut. Because the rotation of the bit is clockwise, it's always going to try and push the router back towards me. So I make a clockwise cut starting at the left hand side and working my way up and around, and by doing that you avoid the climbing cut. And then it's just a question of clearing out the centre, and that's our sliding door recess cut ready for the handle. What I tend to do then, and I'm doing in this one, is I just mark up on the inside of the recess which door it is and which direction of slide it's going to go in. Then I cover that up with a piece of tape so that it can be sprayed or painted or whatever. These are actually going out to be sprayed, so they definitely need to be marked up in that way. Anyway, that's how I make my handle recesses for these sort of handles for sliding doors. Hope you find it useful. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks, as always, for your support, for your patronage, and plenty more to come on that score. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care.